do it again. No.
Yeah.
Hello, and welcome to episode 7 of our monthly video series, Election Connection. I am Scott Jarrett.
And I'm Ray Valenzuela. We are your elections directors for Maricopa County. Each month, we'll have a new episode of Election Connection,
where you, the viewers, can ask questions of us, your election directors.
Okay, Scott, the first question is for you, and it is a two-part.
You missed my spell. You missaid my name. I'm not Cott. I'm Scott.
I'm pretty sure I said Scott. Okay. So, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay. So for our first question, Scott, it's a two-part question. How does Maricopa County protect the ballot tabulators from insider threats to ensure safety of the equipment? And part 2 is, are we still using the machines that were subpoenaed by the Senate and given to the cyber ninjas in 2021?
So I didn't know that two-part questions were allowed, but given that, I think I'll take the second part of that question first. So we are currently not using the equipment that was subpoenaed by the Senate and given to the cyber ninjas. And that's because the Secretary of State decertified that equipment and because we lost chain of custody of that equipment. So we no longer are able to use that for elections in Maricopa County. So the first part of that question was, how do we protect our equipment against insider threat? And there's many different layers of security that we use to be able to protect our equipment. And those come in preventative types of controls or checks and balances, detective types of controls and checks and balances, as well as items used to deter someone from being able to access that equipment. And some of those controls cover all those different areas, whether they're protective, detective, or they're deterrent. One of those is to prevent someone from even being able to access it in the first place. So none of our tabulation equipment is connected to the internet. So you would have to have access to the actual room to be able to compromise our equipment. However, we've implemented additional security measures. Those include covering up our computers, right? So every one of them are in a security canister, and those keys are then stored in our secure server room, which only 4 people in the entire department have access to. We also, as one of the deterrent measures is, and it's also a detective measure, is that we will have live 24/7, 365 days a year video streaming. Right, so that is on the website, so people can view and look at every action that we're taking within the tabulation center. But we're also recording all of that video, that if we ever need to go back and look to see if some action took place, we could go back and review it and find what had happened. Other measures that we take place are we do a logic and accuracy test before every single election. And part of that logic and accuracy test is to test the hash codes. So that's like a very unique fingerprint that is stored with the NIST, the National Institute of Technology, and on escrow with the U.S. Elections Commission. So that, and we run a test to verify that that software, every piece of software that's installed in our equipment, went through federal and state certification before we use it for an election. So those are just a few of the items that and measures that we do and implement to make sure that we're protecting our equipment against insider threat. So I think the next question is for you, Ray.
Okay.
As I'm reading this, it's actually a 2-part question as well.
Wait, you said there's no 2-part questions.
So do you want the first part first or the second part first?
I'll take them both at the same time.
Okay, all right. So what are some procedures Maricopa County uses to ensure that ballots are accurately counted? And can I see that my vote was counted for the candidates and ballot measures that I voted for?
Well, that's, again, another set of excellent questions. I'm always impressed by the inquisitiveness of our folks asking these questions. So I'll take the first question, which is how to ensure ballots are accurately counted. And the reason why I'll take that first is you answered a lot of it. The logic and accuracy, the checks and balances, and the process in place. So I'll repeat some of those, but there's some a little bit more, add a little bit meat to the bones, if you will. So again, before even the first ballot can be counted, we first test and certify the accuracy of the equipment through that and I don't know if you mentioned, but I want to emphasize a post logic and accuracy. So we on the front end test equipment, running thousands of ballots through, and not us, but the Secretary of State, and they verified the machines. And then we do a post logic after to check that fingerprint that you talked about, the hash code, to make sure there was nothing changed in the software. But the one thing I want to bring to the forefront is that this is done with the political party representatives present. They're the ones that actually compare the results, not known to us, known to Secretary of State, and say machine A should have X amount, 1,103 for candidate A. The political party representatives look at that and see what is the known results against the compared result. So it's a really good process of checks and balances that before even the first ballot's tabulated. The other checks and balances.
One other thing I wanted to say, Ray, is right, and we will test every single ballot style and every single rotation on the ballot. So for this upcoming logic and accuracy test for the November general election, we'll test over 13,000 different ballot styles as part of that test.
And we are testing all the pieces of equipment that will be used. So it's not just the central count for the majority of the early ballots, but also our accessible voting device for those that need that it's out in the field, and also the mini tabulators, also called precinct-based tabulators, but we're trying to refer them as mini tabulators since they're the small version on election day that you'll actually feed your ballot into. The other checks and balances, and I loved your analogy that that this is a lot of layers. And if I take some liberty, I like to, when I present to the public, that this is like a safe deposit box. It's very thin metal. Could I break it open with a hammer? Likely you could. But how did you get past the security guard, the armed guard, the cameras, and the 18-inch vault? Us putting those layers in front is what adds to the checks and balances that are in place. So again, LNA, but also quickly, political party observers and all areas of this process. I'm talking about observers in the ballot tabulation center, political party observers in the signature verification, political party observers in the processing board, where that secret ballot is actually separated. Your ballot is maintained sealed until it gets to that bipartisan board. One more time, checks and balances made up of a rep and dem. So it segues nicely into that other checks and balances of bipartisan boards. Everywhere, all phases of ballot processing, as an example, a rep and a dem sitting together on that processing board, a rep and a dem ballot couriers required to pick up the ballots drop off, bipartisan poll workers, bipartisan special election. Basically, anywhere we're handling live physical ballots, we have bipartisan boards actively participating to provide oversight and those checks and balances. And those observers and those boards, for the most part, are provided by, specifically the observers, by the political parties themselves. So another chain of custody documents are in place. Scott already mentioned the live video streaming 24/7. Trackability when we refer back to early ballots. I always keep plugging this every chance I get. We want you to be participatory. We want to be transparent. So track your ballot. Make sure all the way from mail to us receiving it. Text the word join to 628-683 to subscribe to automatic ballot status, or visit your personal voter dashboard on beballotready.vote. There you can check your status live. Like right now, we have 1.9 million ballots going out on October 12th to all our active early voting lists. Go check your status. Am I one of those? Is my address up to date? Am I going to even get it? Very valuable. Again, part of our checks and balances is having you part of the process. And last but not least is the hand count. A lot of folks don't know we do a hand count, and it's required in law, and we've been doing it for 16 years as required by law. And even that, it's done against both early ballots and polling place ballots or vote center ballots. And the ballots and the offices to be audited are selected randomly by the political party chairs. Once again, involving the parties as part of the process, to the point where we don't even hand count. It's their appointees from the parties that actually do that comparison, which is, again, conducted as required by law, and it is to see and test the accuracy of the machine when compared to that citizen board's head count. So that's how we know ballots are accurately, at least a long list of stuff, but that is how we know the machines are accurately counting. Now, the one question on how do I see how our vote was counted for a given candidate measure? By state law, it requires secret ballot. This is actually throughout the nation. There's no personal identifying marks on your ballot, so your vote is completely anonymous during the counting process. but secrecy ensures that your vote is treated equally under the law. A secret ballot is critical part of the U.S., and it has been since the 1890s. People refer to it as it was the Australian ballot, and its secret ballots basically are in place to thwart or forestall any attempts to influence a voter by intimidation, by blackmailing, or even potential vote buying fraud. So again, did that occur? Can it occur? Well, this prevents that because it keeps the anonymity of your ballot. And every state in the United States uses secret ballots. So include Arizona, Section 7, Title 7, Section 1 of the Constitution requires that. But so it is a secret ballot. So how do you know? How you know is when you mark your ballot and it remains, knowing that it remains secret and secure until you either feed it in the mini tabulator or until you return it to us if it's an early ballot, and it know that it remains sealed until it moves through the process, signature verification and such, to that bipartisan process board who is made up of individuals of differing party, and therein lies the checks and balance to say, as you voted it, it remains secret and secured, and they check to make sure it's still sealed. Then and only then is it sent to tabulation.
So once it's in our tabulation center, those ballots can never be tied back to those affidavit envelopes that would then be able to identify the voters that voted those ballots.
Exactly.
Very secure process with very purposeful reasons. So thank you for that explanation, Ray. And thank you, viewers, for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
And don't forget to submit your questions to Just the Facts newsletter next month, where we'll answer more election questions that matter to you the most. And hopefully they're 3-part questions for Scott.